Hello everyone, you're welcome to today's training. This is 3D Synergy, and today we're going to look into some basic animation principles in 3ds Max. Animation is quite easy in 3ds Max, and it's easy to achieve. So we're going to be doing some basic animation in 3ds Max, and the first thing we like to do is create an object. Let's create a box. Alright, so I'm going to assume that this box is probably a bolt on the C. So let's create a plane that's like C, but we want this bolt to move from here to here. So animation is actually displacement of an object between 2 points. So once you know that, it helps your animation. But what gives you the secret is putting on your auto key, set your initial points, set your final point. So initial point, once your auto key is on, points are created by any displacement within the scene. If you move anything, it reports it. If you adjust anything, it reports it. So for instance, if I move in time to 60 seconds or 60 frames, always remember that we're not dealing with seconds, we're dealing with frames. It's because in animation, you don't think in terms of seconds, you think in terms of frames. And by the way, 60 frames means that if you're working on a 30 frame per second video, which you would get to know by the time configuration here. Let's click on time configuration. The time configuration here shows us that we are working on NTSC. NTSC works on 30 frames per second. You can also change it to power. Power works with 25 frames per second. You can see that there's an adjustment in the timeline. Power works with 25 frames per second. What does this mean? NTSC has 30 frames per second, means that you will need to count 30 frames to know that you have achieved 1 second of video. And power being 25 frames, you need to count 25 frames to know that you have achieved 1 second of video. So knowing this is very important. It will help to know what to do, know how long your project should be, and how long, how short. So when you render a project of 100 frames, you know you're working with 3 seconds and 10 frames. So for you to achieve 5 seconds with NTSC, for you to achieve 5 seconds, you will be working with 5 times 30, that's 150. So how do we change this to 150? You see here in the animation panel or section, you have your start time, your length, and your end time. Your length influences your end time, because your start time plus your length will always give your end time. So if we make it 150, 1, 5, and 0, you realize our end time becomes 150 also. But the number of frame count is 151 because it is including 0 as from the count. So it's counting from 0, 1, 2, 3. So the number of frame count is 151, and the current point or place where your what do you call this again? This is like a scroll within your timeline. You scroll it to forward and backward within the timeline to move in time. All right. So for that position, it's actually going to read it. Okay. So basically, it shows here. Okay. Yes, this is called the slider. I just skipped my slider. So this is 60 because the slider is on 60. Basically, and once you click on OK, it's expanded to 150, and you can see, always remember your time configuration, that's where you make all the adjustment. If you change it to power, you won't see any changes here for now, and once you click on OK and you go back, that's when you see that it has actually changed to 25. So change it to NTSC, you won't see any changes, but once you click OK and you go back, that's when you see your 30. That's how it actually was created, basically. So how do you create an animation between 2 points, an initial point, and probably 60? Remember, we're working with 30 frames per second, so this distance is just 2 seconds. 2 seconds. So if you want an object to travel from point A to point B, you have to consider the size of the object. You have to consider the distance of travel. Then it will now help you to know the speed of the object. So considering the distance between 2 points and the time taken to get there, that will give you the speed of the object. So if you're looking at a boat and you want the boat to travel from a point to the other and you want to show it in your scene, you want the boat to travel with a speed of probably 20 kilometers per hour or miles per second or something. You have to consider the time that you are giving to it. 1 second is 30, 2 seconds is this. Then that, with the distance and the time, you will know the speed, the actual speed in reality of the object. So basically I want the object to start moving from 0 to 60 frames. So I come into 60 frames while my auto key is on. For you to know auto key is on, the red bar will surround your screen. So once I adjust this object and I move to this point, you see that there is an initial keyframe and there is a keyframe for the final state. Drag your cursor back and you see that we've created the animation. But in a situation where you want your animation to start probably at 60 and end at 120, how do you go about it? There are two things you could do. You could actually select your animation by just dragging over it and your keyframe, and dragging the both of them to where you want it to be. In that case, nothing happens until you get to 60 frames and it begins to move, and once it gets to 120 frames it stops. Let's play it so you can see. Start and moves and stops, moves and stops. Alright, now if you actually want to create that without necessarily starting from your initial position of 0, how do you go about it such that you want to start from here? If you say you're starting from 120, you are creating the final point at 120. See what happens. What it does is that it creates an initial position at 0. The initial position will always be 0. So how do I make my initial position 60 and not 0? And that's where set key comes in. Set keys. Alright, set key. This is toggle set key mode. This is set key itself. So you could actually work on 2 modes, the auto key mode and the set key mode. But while you're on the auto key mode, you could use your set key too. Set key mode means that you are the one to create the points yourself, the initial point, the final point. But you can work on the you can still be on the auto key mode and use set keys. Now I'm going to come to 60 and say set key, clicking on the key. Once I do that, it creates an initial point for me, and I come to the next point. As I move, because I'm on auto key, it automatically generates a keyframe where I am in time in relation to parameters of the position, size, and all of those things recorded. So it has an initial parameter record and it has the present record of the parameter of the object in question. Always remember, we're talking about object in question. So if you play this from the beginning, nothing happens and it moves forward at that point because we set a key at that point. So always remember, this set key is very, very important. Thank you for this part of the training. We'll continue in the next part of the series.